Let's move on, because there's been very interesting stuff going on with the dual players, particularly in the women's side of the game in terms of Camogie and the LGFA Women's Gaelic Football. Sarah Donovan is with us now to talk to us a bit about what's going on, to try and get a handle on it. Sarah, you're welcome first off, and we've been talking about the dual player a good bit in recent times, but particularly the Tipperary club situation. But it's now become an inter-county story, and there's lots of nice little stories bubbling together along at the same time, which has brought it front and centre. At the weekend, there was a motion before Congress, and now it looks like there are games being fixed for the same day. So what the hell's going on?
I'm weary from them, to be honest. This has been going on, I feel, since about 2017. And I think Libby Coppinger, who's one of the dual players involved with Cork, who's going to be affected by games that are going to take place the 7th of November, the 18th of November and the 28th and 29th of November, is talking about striking.
So the games, she's an inter-county player who plays both Camogie and Gaelic football inter-county. The games are scheduled for the same day.
Exactly. And it's been flagged as far out as July. And neither the LGFA or the Camogie Association are willing to come to the table to discuss this. Now, the Camogie Association are saying that the LGFA won't come to the table, and the LGFA aren't saying anything.
At the weekend, there was a proposal before Camogie Congress. What was the bones of the proposal?
It was to facilitate the dual player. 2 weeks ago, Coola, who would have dual players, ladies football and Camogie, put in a motion to the Camogie Association. It was quite similar to the debate in March when the LGFA had the same type of resolution before it to facilitate the dual player. Now, back in March, the Ladies Football Association rejected the motion, and it kind of went to bed for, I suppose, a number of reasons, probably notably COVID being the most notable. And when it came before Congress at the weekend, 76% of the Camogie Association rejected the resolution to facilitate the dual player within our game.
And was there a discussion around why people were rejecting it? We were chatting about this earlier on. And you had a theory that in the long history of motions, if there's any room for ambiguity, a horse and carriage gets driven through it.
I appreciate that, and I obviously was vocal about this on Twitter over the weekend simply because I was so disappointed. And the feedback from the Camogie Association and people who attended Congress, obviously, who were coming out to bat, said to me a couple of things. They said the LGFA rejected it first, so obviously very school-esque. The second one was that there was too much ambiguity, as Owen said, and while I appreciate that, the conversation could have started in 2017, and I have no idea why the Camogie Association and the Ladies Football Association continue to court negativity. This is the weekend coming into Championship Camogie. It should be colour pieces about what players have done to get themselves up to the mark to play Championship this weekend, and all we have in the papers is negativity about two associations. What I'm really surprised about is that Littlewoods and Liberty, who are the three headline sponsors for these organisations, haven't at this point thrown their toys out of the pram and said, guys, we need to start seeing proper publicity. You know, this is business at the end of the day. These are organisations that are saying that they're commercial organisations, but yet all we've seen is negativity in the press.
Of the 76%, Sarah, that voted against this, if we leave the ambiguity thing aside, there is going to be a huge amount of people who voted against the spirit of the motion, you'd suspect. Why is that? Why would somebody in that position who has a vote on that day vote against it? Is there a motive that is not playing to our eyes?
I'm on the pitch. I'm not in the halls of Croke Park, you know, making rules and dictating how the game should be played. And what's most frustrating for me is that we're continuously told, well, if you're not happy with the rule, come in and you know, get your own vote and sort it out. I started my career on the pitch and I'd like to finish it on the pitch, but it's really, really frustrating that the people who are in charge of making these decisions aren't actually asking the players. Like, as a player who's played alongside some incredible dual players over the years, Rena Buckley, Breach Corkery, I never wanted anything for them except for them to be able to compete with me and against me, obviously, when I moved to Dublin. And I can't see how it's a negative. You know, I train an under 16 and an under 15 Camogie team at the moment. We've been playing all summer. And because they're playing so much football, they're really fit. So when they come to the pitch, to me, I do skills and I do game management. I don't have to flog them and run them up and down a field, because the sports are complementary, so complementary to each other. So I cannot see why the Camogie Association and the LGFA are so negative.
Like just to go through the proposed rule, because like I struggle to see what bad this could possibly do. So it says the Camogie Association recognises and supports the concept of a dual player as defined, and will encourage all of its units to support and facilitate its playing members of all ages who wish to do so to play both camogie and ladies football. In doing so, the Camogie Association and all of its units will be conscious of and promote the welfare of all players. So again, just to come back to that, like 76% of delegates voting against adopting that is a striking figure, and it does seem that they are voting against the welfare of their own organisation to a point.
And is this the mandate that has come down from the Camogie Association? I know 2 weeks ago I was contacted because RTE Sport were looking to do a piece about this motion that was coming before Congress. And as organised as RTE are, they were looking at this motion 2 weeks ago, and they could not get the Ladies Football Association to comment, and they could not get the Camogie Association to comment about this recommendation that was coming before Congress. There's a full-time CEO in the Camogie Association, Sinead McNulty. I fail to see how you could avoid a recommendation like this that's on RTE Sport of an evening, and the publicity that it's getting. You know, if you're in Croke Park and you're in a full-time paid position, you cannot start ignoring these resolutions. And I think the mandate came from the top to say, look, the LGFA aren't coming to the table, we're not going to budge either. And I think it's really naive, Camogie Association, because our sport is different to ladies football. Ladies football has stolen a march on us. Ladies football is the more popular sport. I say this because for mass participation purposes, it's an easier game to play. And some people might see that as a negative, but when I'm training under 14 players, it's much easier to pull a player in who hasn't played football before and bring them up to speed than it is to pull a camogie player up to speed. And I think for our organisation, we have to look at the bigger picture here. We need all the players we can get to participate, and we're being very naive about the fact that we're shutting out our dual players.
And is there any concern that you might end up being eaten alive by Gaelic football? There's very few counties where the dual counties where the hurling is stronger than the football. There's a few, but there are very few, as we've seen traditionally. So, as you've said, it's a skilled acquisition game. It's difficult. It requires coaches who know what they're doing, and they're thin on the ground as well. So, is there any fear that it's actually better to protect what you have, and not try and give everybody over to the footballers for fear they might end up just going to the football?
Well, look, 12-year-old me, if I had known at 12 that I could have gone to Australia to play AFLW on the back of playing intercounty football, or gone to the women's rugby sevens like Louise Galvin or Hannah Tyrrell on the back of ladies football and had a professional career, perhaps at 12 I'd have considered giving more interest to ladies football than I would to camogie. I suppose proponents of camogie, the likes of Denise Gall, Anne Dalton, Niamh Kilkenny from Galway, these are stars, absolute stars, who are absolutely passionate about their sport. But we're low on the ground in terms of intercounty and opportunities for camogie players. So the more negative we are about our underage players and those players coming in to play intercounty and coming in to play minor, intermediate, senior, they're going to go play football. And that's why I really feel that we have to facilitate these players at an underage level to know that the option's always there to them.
Okay, so the argument is if you actually create that space, then that space will always exist, and you ring fence the space to play camogie, you ring fence the space to play Gaelic football, and actually they coexist. Do they coexist week on, week off? Can they coexist on the same weekend? Because I know, I think Libby was saying last night that even if they were 24 hours apart, that would be a quantum leap forward.
All she's looking for is 24 hours, and you know what? I think it's probably stark. At the start of the year, she's probably based her fitness schedule off of knowing that she is going to have to do these grueling 24-hour, turnarounds for games. And I think the dual players actually starting to change their mindset in terms of their training to know how much they're going to have to get out of their body over those 2 days, because they're fully aware that they want to play dual, and that has to be accommodated.
Part of me does wonder in all sports and in club situations as well, how much of your schedule do you allow to be dictated by the dual player, and how much of it is actually just for everybody else? So, like, you know, is it 10% of your scheduling is concerned about dual players? Is it 50% of your scheduling is concerned about dual players? Like, is separate days enough, or does it actually have to be week on, week off? And at that point, are the LGFA going, well, look, I'm sorry, but we have like nearly 32 counties who are fielding teams. You guys have 10 or 12 counties who are fielding teams at a level. So I guess I'm saying is, how much of it ring fencing do you need to do?
That's a good question. I think as a starting point, the senior players should absolutely be accommodated. And then it's like, can't see, can't be. The more the senior teams are facilitated to play, then that will obviously come back down through the units, as they're called, within the associations to accommodate these players. You know, that situation in Care in Tipperary, the ladies footballers it was decided that the ladies footballers as the senior team were given precedence, and then that junior A Camogie team were lost in the abyss. And that's what will happen to Camogie because of the fact that there's a bigger participation in ladies football. So I think the Camogie Association, unfortunately, because of our size and because of this, as you said, skill acquisition nature of the game, we have to recognise that we are a minority now, and ladies football is a much bigger game, and we are going to have to facilitate those players in order to keep our game alive and attract players to our game at an early age so that they can decide in the long run whether they want to play Camogie football.
We've heard various GA presidents over the last 2 decades talk about bringing the whole family together and making sure that there was parity of esteem, and we seem to be getting further and further away from that, because we keep hearing about, a landmark agreement that in principle we're going to try this, and actually it doesn't seem like we're getting there, and I'm not sure what kind of arrangements we would end up with if we did get there.
Look, I suppose when you look at the way these associations have changed and the paid positions that have come in to these associations, it's not simply a case of bringing everyone under the umbrella, because now there's contracts of employment in place, and you have people within the LGFA who have very good jobs, very good salaries, very good positions. The same with the Camogie Association. They're not going to hand over power to the GA or to give deference to the GA just to come in under that umbrella. I think everybody's working individually and for themselves, and they see their own organisation as having power within it and not necessarily understanding the power that could come from an umbrella organisation.
Sarah, could I ask you about what you said a couple of moments ago about potentially picking football if you thought that there was a better avenue towards professional rugby or towards professional Aussie rules, for example? Does that speak to the level that people are trained at in football as opposed to Camogie as much as the skill set?
I think it's the visibility, the cross-coder element. I was a dual player. I played with Cork up until under 21 football. I played soccer with Ireland up to under 19. I played Camogie with Cork, obviously, to senior, and then with Dublin. And, playing soccer at under 19, I knew that it wasn't possible to play soccer and Camogie, and I had to make a choice. But it's fascinating that within my own organisation that there is an opportunity to play, both and be comfortable doing it. The skills of ladies football are transferable, as are the skills of Camogie. But as I said to you earlier, I suppose in terms of the really nuanced, quick elements of Camogie, I don't think they're warranted in AFLW or rugby. So maybe it's just that ladies football is easier to play.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation as well, though. And when you put it that way, there's probably an element of like if we look at everybody going down to the AFLW, that can't not have a positive impact on what's happening at All Ireland level here at football as well, because they're coming back and saying, hold on a minute, we're doing this in such and such a way down there, professional level. And there's kind of an element of needing to catch up then, because otherwise there's going to be a complete and utter exodus.
Well, players like Louise Galvin would have spoken on off the ball about the opportunities that came to travel the world and be a professional player, which resulted from ladies football. I would love to say that those same opportunities existed for Camogie, but they don't. I'm not going to play professional lacrosse in America. I'm not going to play ice hockey in Canada. I can't think of sports that are as closely aligned, and that's probably the march that ladies football has stolen on Camogie, is that it's closely aligned to the AFLW and it's closely aligned to rugby, and that's where the switch can happen. everyone wants to play professional football when they're an inter-county player.
Can I ask you about what happens at club level? What level of cooperation is there between the underage football and the underage camogie teams and the management of the teams?
We actually are very lucky within Vincent's because our team is managed by a group of gents who manage both the ladies football and camogie together. So we have alternate days on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. So I train camogie solely, the lads train football. We come together for the matches. Like Libby was looking for, we have games Saturday and Sunday. So while I have one day taken up the weekend, the lads have two. They have daughters within the team, so obviously that's the payoff. They're out 2 days a weekend because they have daughters in the team. But the level of cooperation within the group to play and to make sure that both teams are I suppose suitably packed is commendable, and that just shows in the results. So we're playing in a semi-final of an under-15 county if the fixtures open up again, semi-final of a minor county football, and the third one is the under-16 Division 1 camogie final to be played if fixtures open up again. So you can see that it's been very complimentary this summer because we're now in 3 action-packed semi-finals and 1 big final.
I guess that proves what can be done when everybody works together with the shared goal of giving the players the best experience.
Absolutely, and I suppose I know in my heart of hearts that the majority of the girls prefer playing football, and I come with my hat on every day and my trumpet saying, look over here, it's great. But unfortunately, I'm competing with the likes of Sinead Goldrick and Breed Stack and all of these girls who have a very exciting prospect ahead of them in the winter, and that's the visibility that the ladies football has that camogie doesn't have right now. Those really positive stories about the girls playing for their counties and then going abroad. I can't compete with that right now, and I know we can.
All the more reason for the central organisation to get its act together and ring-fence some space for itself in the calendar. Sarah, before we let you go, I just wanted to talk to you about Arthur James O'Dee's piece at the weekend. He spoke with 13 women involved in elite sports, different disciplines, and you were very strong. There was a fairly remarkable story about a Facebook group that was set up when you were playing camogie at club level, which was fairly shocking, to be honest.
Yeah, and my dad read the piece back yesterday. He said, God, I don't remember that happening. Did that happen then? And I said, yeah, Dad. At the time, we were a very successful country team, and 2 of our players in the team, Emer Dillon and Katrina Kelly, were innately talented. They were incredible camogie players, and the club had given us the main pitch, as I said, for a period of about 15 years, and the club recognised that we were the senior team in the club, and duly gave us the pitch. But a group of young guys on from the club set up a Facebook page called "Keep the Girls Off the Good Pitch," and it got amazing traction. And what I struggled with was they're being shown the way by the club, but yet the narrative that they're choosing to follow, where did that come from? I couldn't figure out where that came from, that they were being outrightly sexist, even though the club was showing them a completely different way.
Did you ever talk to any of them about it?
Young lads,
yeah.
They would.
Did you know them?
They would. They were maybe, and I mean this when I say this, they were 14 and 15 years of age. They were kids. These weren't the adults in the club. The lads in the club were brilliant. The intermediate hurlers, minors. We had massive support for all of our games, and this is why this confused me so much. It was just this small little cohort of lads who had taken it upon themselves to set up this Facebook group. It made no sense because the club was so forward thinking and so equal in terms of the way they divided out our time.
The other takeaway that a lot of people have had from the piece, and I would encourage everybody to go and read it, was that, wow, athletics seems pretty good.
This is what I was surmising after reading Breach Connolly's comments and Jessie Barr's comments and Claire Mooney's comments. Breach Connolly made some very stark comments about the fact that she has never experienced sexism in athletics. And I'd nearly send my future children to athletics if I thought that they would avoid the sexism that I've experienced. Lynn Cantwell has experienced. She spoke about it in the piece. It just doesn't. how athletics has managed to be so forward thinking for so long, and yet team sports don't seem to have caught up.
Do you feel like we're catching up?
No, I think we're getting worse. You know, we have a situation in Dublin Camogie at the moment. You'll have seen it in the paper last Thursday. Again, another negative story. You know, the senior management team walked away from the group of players a week out from championship, and that's the fourth management team in 3 years that has taken over that group of girls, and that group of girls has committed year on year, and yet every year the county board, the Dublin County Board, has failed to manage to communicate with the management team in a way that has meant that they've managed to stay on the pitch. And that group of girls deserve so much more from their county board than they're currently getting right now. And that's why I don't think we're catching up, because I don't think this situation will be allowed to develop in the Dublin GA side of things. You know, like how can you have 4 different management teams walking away from a group of girls, and then the following year the girls are expected to buy in a new management team, a new set of assessments, a new set of loyalty? It's so disheartening.
Is your experience at club level giving you some hope?
I loved being involved at club level. I suppose over the years I've always had some very strong and very formidable coaches, very few female coaches, but I do enjoy the club ethos more than the county ethos, because I think at club level there's a sense of community.
And look, hopefully that's the thing that inspires more women to become involved and become coaches and become the administrators, so they're ultimately in charge and they're making the decisions, and it's a more friendly environment, or at least there's no room for the misogyny that has characterised so much of team sports going back decades. You would hope that we're chiselling away at it, but
sometimes I wonder, we take 2 steps forward and then 3 steps back. You know, like this current situation with Dublin Camogie girls, I'm really disappointed with, because I really feel it's a situation that could be absolutely avoided. You know, they have a new management team that's in place now 3 weeks, and they're expected to perform at the highest level, and they will be criticised over the next 8 weeks for not being close enough to Kilkenny, not being close enough to Galway, not being close enough to Cork. You know, the kingpins in Camogie. And we'll have the same old conversations, but we won't look at the root of the problem, which is the fact that county boards is failing to actually respect the girls and respond to the girls in the way that they need.
Sarah, great having you on this morning, and plenty for us to get stuck into and to think about as well. Thanks a million for joining us.
No worries. Thanks so much. Bye.
Sarah Donovan there. You can read her part of Arthur's piece on otbsports.com. We'll tweet it out again now just to remind everybody exactly what the crack is with it. It is 8:37 here on OTB AM. Let's play a clip from Libby Coppinger. She's the Cork Jewel star that kind of kicked off that conversation that we just had with Sarah there. She was speaking with Joe on last night's OTB about her own particular dilemma.
Both games are fixed for Saturday, November 7th, as an example. So that's you a bit goosed. Your point is, for instance, that weekend, the Sunday is free. Now, I think Galway are willing to move, but your point is the Sunday is free. And it doesn't seem like you guys are looking for perfection, in that you're willing to play a serious game within 24 hours of the first game. You're happy to play 2 games in a weekend, it seems.
Yeah, 100%. Like, as in, we know it's going to be a tough scheduling issue this year. Like, there's no doubt about it. But we're not asking for much. We literally just want the 24 hours, because, like, you wouldn't be able to manage. First of all, they're definitely going to be in different parts of the country. But like physically you wouldn't be able to manage playing, whereas like at least if you can get the good night's sleep, get the recovery in, you would be able to give a good shift again the next day. And the body would be right. So like, I don't know, I personally don't think it's asking for too much, but it seems to be tough to do.
And am I right in saying that the Galway Camogie team are willing to move it to the next day?
Yeah, that's been said. Like I know over the years it has never seemed to be particular teams or anything like that have been against moving or changing days or times or anything like that. It always seems to be the associations that kind of don't even want to ask about it or, you know, liaise with each other to try and organise.
We had a really interesting text in last night about this situation. Great topic on the LGFA Camogie Association. I look after a under-14 team in Dublin. We football on Friday night and Camogie on Saturday morning at 12, repeatedly at weekends. It's a crazy situation. Makes my blood boil when I hear the 20 by 20 smokescreen, and then the reality on the ground is so different. If I tried to do this with a greyhound, I'd be up for animal cruelty. But it's okay for 13-year-old girls. Boys have alternative weekends, not a problem. I think even though separate days is not a bad start, maybe people should be playing games at weekends on different days. Is that not okay at under 13, under 14?
If it's at different days, yeah. I'm sure everybody's played games that are on the same day as well. I think it's probably when you get to senior intercounty level, the least you expect is a little bit of joined up thinking. I think as a 14-year-old, you're probably eager to play a load of games between. If you're playing basketball and soccer as well, you're probably playing multiple different games per week, and probably at least 2 in a weekend as well. So that's probably regularised across both genders. But definitely when you get to the senior level, it does seem that it's women's sport that gets far more of a raw deal.
Yeah, and look, if it is alternate weekends for the lads, and that's the system that has been worked out and actually works best for everybody, then there should be a template there that you can apply, given that these sports are all supposed to be the same sport and those clubs are all exactly the same doing it. But we'll put that to Sarah next time we have her on, and we'll get more into that conversation and try and do a bit more digging about the Dublin Camogie story, which does seem a little bit ludicrous. 8:41 here on OTB AM. OTB AM live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Time for the papers.